Ladies and gentlemen, when I started this YouTube channel, it was called Music from Bach to Beethoven and Beyond, and that's exactly what we are doing, because it's not only Bach anymore, it's not only Beethoven anymore. Chopin is knocking on your door right now in this beautiful, if I may say so myself, Kickstarter. We launched this morning. I'm recording this video the 2nd of June at 2 p.m. and we are almost at half of the necessary funds we need in order to make this production going. So in this video I will tell you everything about this Kickstarter. We will listen actually and watch the video that I made, the beautiful promotion video, can I say it like that? We're gonna do that because I'm gonna elaborate later on also the things that are here, and as a bonus I'm gonna take you back to this prelude in E minor. You will remember in this video we covered the E minor prelude and also the recording by Yuja Wang, where she made a lot of riato. Everybody does that, by the way, and Alberto doesn't. Or he did some micro riatos, and I got some emails from you saying like, actually I'm not sure if I like that, which is cool because it shows that you are really on the same path as we are. And guess who was calling me as well? Our friend Alberto, saying, Wim, you don't have the last version of this prelude because I re-recorded that later, but apparently it's not on my hard drive. We're gonna talk about that, the differences and all of that good stuff. But before we do that, as always, do me a big favor, subscribe on this channel if you haven't done so already. That helps big time in the algorithm. And of course, second call to action today, just go on Kickstarter and check out if it's something for you. And with this out of the way, let's just watch together the Kickstarter introduction video. It gives you some general information about the project, about Chopin, and also in the background you have some musical excerpts that I think work very well. And of course it gives you also like a little bit of insight of what the recording is going to be about. It will take like 5 or 6 minutes and then you'll see me back. Ladies and gentlemen, what if I told you we've been playing Chopin too fast for over a century? For generations, we've admired the speed and brilliance of Chopin's music, believing that fast was more authentic, more virtuosic, more faithful to the composer. But what if that assumption is based on a simple historical misunderstanding? What if, instead of the impossible speeds and works like this, he actually meant this? Like William Mason, the famous Liszt student who wrote around 1900 when observing how Chopin's music was increasingly performed, and I quote, "Electricity has brought about so many changes and has enabled us to do so many things much more rapidly than formerly. Should Chopin's music be electrified or, as it seems to me, electrocuted?" That observation is still relevant today. I know this could be seen as a provocative statement, but really, this project is about rethinking tempo, not as a limitation, but as the missing key to how this music was originally meant to sound. After all, changing the tempo changes everything about the composition, also the character, and that's very important, also to the composer, by the way. This approach reaches beyond Chopin. It's part of an ongoing research, the results of which we'll publish in 2026 in a 650-page book. In that context, we've recorded 5 hours of Chopin's piano works, Volume 1, played at the original tempos indicated in his scores, understood through authentic 19th century metronome practice. Not slower for the sake of being slow, but slower because the markings demand it, when read as composers of that time understood them. is our trusted Alberto Sanna, my partner for the Beethoven Symphony project and currently recording the complete Beethoven keyboard works, of which Volume 1 just left our studio. Close to 350 boxes traveling to 27 countries right now. Alberto performs on a specially built Viennese fortepiano modeled after an 1860 Johann Fritz instrument, an instrument close to the ones Chopin knew during his time in Warsaw and Vienna. And on top of the new tempos, this instrument adds another unique layer to this project. It connects Chopin to his roots, and because of the remarkable sound of this newly built instrument we also use for our Beethoven project, by the way, you'll hear different aspects in the works of Chopin we know so well today. If you ever wanted to hear Chopin, not just as a performer's showcase, but as a deeply human voice, this project is for you. Take some time to adjust to this new musical universe. And if you have any questions or doubts, please explore the extensive description and frequently asked questions video linked on this Kickstarter page. On that info page, you also find an overview of the tier levels and rewards. The recordings will be released as a deluxe 5 CD box, just like our Beethoven boxes, but every backer gets digital access to all 5 albums via Bandcamp stream or download in high-resolution quality formats. And because we value your contributions, your support, and want to have you close to our projects, also through this Kickstarter you can get your name as a supporter in the booklet. Only if you want, of course. And this is just the beginning. If this campaign succeeds, we'll continue with Volume 2 after completion of the complete Beethoven keyboard works first, and even plan to restore our original 1838 Pleyel pianino, the exact same type Chopin used in Mallorca to compose his preludes. If this vision speaks to you, if you're curious about how much music can change when we get the tempo right, I'd be honored to have your support. Let's rediscover Chopin together. So okay, let's see what makes this recording so different. Obviously, you all know the first reason why is of course the tempo. This will be the first recording in the entire history of recording technology that follows Chopin's metronomization to the letter. And that's super important. You all know that the tempo choice is the most important thing that the performer has to choose. And it's also the most important thing that the composer had to choose, because what is true for a player, for a performer, is true for the composer as well. Changing the tempo changes everything. Even the slightest deviation of time, as Karol Czerny famously said, changes the entire character. He used stronger words than I. He said, destroys the entire piece. But he meant, of course, the character of the piece as intended by the composer. So reconstructing this is super important. And now you can agree or disagree with the WBMP. And let's face it, the majority of musicians and music lovers and musicologists, they do not particularly agree with us, which is mind-blowing in a way, because how are you going to solve the metronome problem without this back and forth of the metronome? Anyways, whatever your position is, the historically informed performance practice can only survive, is thriving only when people experiment with music. And so this is the first official recording in which we are just applying one of the basic principles of the entire 19th century for the majority of composers, namely the reconstruction of the tempo. And so only for that reason I think we can be proud. But there's of course more. This recording also is taking into account the principle, the original principle of the tempo rubato, meaning left hand remains stable as a choir master, as Chopin said famously to his student. And this is on itself a major difference. Another thing, the pianoforte of course, Yes, Chopin played in Paris on a playable piano most of the times. He of course played also on the other brands. He played regularly on Erard, and he had of course contact with all the piano builders of that time in Paris, which were a lot. This piano is not a big stretch to place Chopin on a Viennese pianoforte because that was his world with which he grew up with. These were the pianos that he knew when he was back in Warsaw. And so this instrument in particular is an unbelievable instrument for this music. You can say like any Viennese pianoforte would do, but this Fritz copy built by Pottfliege in 2019, especially for the Beethoven project, has such qualities, especially the treble, that for Chopin, with all his jeux perlés, as they say, it's unbelievable. And so having the opportunity, owning such an instrument that has the capacity of interpreting that music from a perspective that Chopin knew was too much of a unique opportunity to just not use. I'm not sure if it's ever done. Probably there has been recordings made on Viennese pianofortes with Chopin's music, but in this scope, I'm not sure. And then something else, 3 pillars of authenticity, but it's briefly mentioned here as well, exact pedal use. This is also a game changer. And of course, the reason why people use so much pedal today has 2 reasons. It is like in 19th century evolution towards, and more the second half of the 19th century, you had several schools, but one of them survived. And actually, that's the only school we still know today. It's like where you use the pedal actually constantly. It's a legato pedal. You go from one note to the other even with the pedal. And also people playing pianofortes doing that. There is not such a difference between those 2 schools. And if there is one composer in history that was like so meticulously precise and indicated where he wanted pedal, it is Chopin. And so all the reasons of not using it, being it not the right room, not the right instrument, the modern instrument, whatever, that's besides the question. You can use this way of pedaling on a modern Steinway. It's not a problem. You have to just understand what he wanted, and it's not easy. We're going to talk about that in the Chopin Prelude as well, because it had a consequence there. So adding that element gives you, on top of all the other elements, like a complete new Chopin. It will be like a very valuable addition to these boxes and to all the other recordings that we have over there. Building the collection with your help. And so what do you get here in this Kickstarter is a little bit similar as the last time. So we have 4 tier levels. When you just wanted to have the digital recording, you go for the digital Chopin. You will get, after the Kickstarter is successfully finished, you will get the Bandcamp codes. There you can download the recordings in high resolution if you want, or you can listen on streaming. It's a beautiful platform. We like using that. Or you can go for the CD box, which is the second tier level, your collection, we're calling that, because you're adding this box to your collection. It's, as I said, we are building this collection. Or you can go for the third tier level, collector's items. You get all the same things, but you get 2 boxes. One of them will be signed by Alberto. And in the third or the fourth tier level, I should say, the Collector Plus, that's very expensive, but you get to choose a program which Alberto is going to play live in a live concert that we will stream later, as we're going to do here with this Beethoven Keyboard Works #1. That will be a live concert streamed the end of July, and the people of the third and the fourth tier level will get access to that live, and everybody of course will get the footage of the recording. With this out of the way, I briefly want to touch upon this Prelude #4. You will remember, I think most of you have seen that video, and if not, you can check it out. It's a very important thing, this tempo rubato, like what's in the score, how do we read the score? And like I was pointing out in that video, like, okay, you have here a left hand that has no pedal. Everybody plays this with pedal, by the way, because it's very hard to make these notes sound well, especially on a piano that Alberto is playing on with no double escapement. But when you manage to do that, you have a kind of lamento, like funeral march, like atmosphere. And by the way, talking about pedal, how do we know it's without pedal? I mean, why would Chopin indicate pedal here and here, the most obvious places in the world? Because you have a bass note here, and he wants to preserve the bass note until there. He wants to preserve this bass note until here. So when he marks pedal here, you can be 100% sure he doesn't want to have pedal here. Now, we're gonna listen to Yuja Wang just a few bars, not so long, because you can go back to the one of the previous videos. But I also shared the recording of this made by Alberto, of which I thought it was the last version. Apparently it wasn't. He was making some of these micro rubatos, not major rubatos. You could still follow the tempo, but the left hand was changing a little bit. He told me that it was because of the difficulties of release of the key, and he re-recorded the piece a few times, and the result you will hear in a second, which is much more straightforward. Now, you can say what's possibly difficult in releasing these chords. For that, you should play once on a piano with no double escapement, and I think the Playel would do. Didn't have that. But the Viennese pianoforte is so sensitive that if you just touch the key too early, you oftentimes will end up having no sound at all. And another reason is the range. So this part of the keyboard is very strong on these instruments. So you have to prepare your hand while you actually cannot prepare it because your hand is busy with releasing these chords. It's not only attacking these chords, not only pressing down, you have to go up as well. The timing of each of these eighth notes has to be completely similar. So for everyone who wants to comment like this is so easy playing in whole beat, well, try that. When you would play a modern concert grand, you would immediately use the double escapement to do that. Pressing the keys like a little bit in and just use the double escapement in order to have this effect. That is infinitively much easier. And that's the reason why Alberto, by just preparing the next chord, which cannot be forte, and trust me, on a Viennese pianoforte, these chords in this range of the piano sound forte without even trying. But keep that sound stable and also in like this lamento pace. That's extremely difficult. That was the reason why he re-recorded that later, and I didn't know about that. For all of you who have the recording on Bandcamp, I will be re-uploading this piece, so you'll have it there as well, and probably you get a notification from that as well. So we're gonna listen to this result right now, and before we do that, just again listen to Yuja Wang. Try to tap the tempo, left hand's tempo with your hand or foot or whatever. It's impossible. And you can say, I like this kind of rubato, which is the modern rubato, which is really changing the tempo, or there is no tempo actually anymore. The definition of a tempo is that you can actually, as a listener, follow the pulse. It's not possible here anymore. We got so used to that. But the reason is, of course, the too high tempo. And then you have to pull the brakes, because this music, you cannot just play over all these beautiful passages, these lamento notes. She feels that. You can say whatever you want about these people, Yuja Wangs or Lang Lang or whatever. These people can play the piano. These people are really great musicians. They just have to compromise with the score, and that's the entire point. So let's listen just a few seconds to Yuja Wang, and then we go to Alberto. There's so much you can say about this. Let's not do that. We're going to listen to the actual final version of the Prelude in E minor, part of the release on Kickstart on the 5 CD box, of course. This silence is unbelievable, right? And it just ends in the piece here in no man's land. There is nothing. And just from a technical perspective, these chords, Alberto doesn't use pedal. And you can say, like, just using pedal, what does it change? It changes a lot, huh? It changes the entire sound of the piano. The transparency of the sound disappears. Just listen to it again and think about how Alberto manages to play this E and D sharp like in a suggested legato. The thing that is ongoing in your wrist and forearm here in order to make that happen, this release of the key going to an upper key, it's extremely difficult. I think it's just beautiful. And the more you listen to that, the less you have the impression that this is slow. This is, for a lyrico, pretty fast. Over 5 hours of Chopin you get like this in this new box. So I would say head over to Kickstarter, see if it's something for you. Listen to the few fragments. There will be also an interview with Alberto that's upcoming. My patrons will get the first. Listen to that, and then I will also upload that to a newsletter. We have some weeks of newsletters in which I will touch upon different aspects of this recording and what makes it so unique. We go a little bit deeper into that, and there I will also give that kind of podcast format. He was here in the studio last week. We recorded an hour, his backstory a little bit, his history with Chopin, and all that good stuff. So again, Kickstarter is waiting for you. Thank you for being part of this project already now. And let's hope we can make it to add another volume to this, I think, beautiful collection. And of course, I'm proud of that, because what else did you think? Thank you for watching. We see each other very soon again. Bye.